Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Felicia. So before I even start the video, I want to let you guys know that my lighting is going to look a little strange. Certain scenes you're going to notice that I filmed during the day. Other scenes you're going to see me with my flash on because I'm filming at night. The day just kind of escaped me. I started this video around 10 a.m. I'm now wrapping it up. It's almost 8 p.m. at night. So we're just going to roll with it and hope that the lighting is somewhat consistent and you can see me and my plants. We've been well into fall for some time now, and here in Jersey, the weather just recently started to change. The past several days, we had excellent weather. It's been in the 70s. It's been beautiful. No jackets, shorts, skirts. We were good here in Jersey, but all of a sudden, like a light switch, and as expected, the weather has suddenly changed. The temperatures have dropped. It's now, today, for example, it was high 40s. At nighttime, it's in the 20s and 30s. So while I love the fall because of the wardrobe and the beautiful boots and coats and stuff, my plants, not so much for my plants. So I'm going to share with you guys all of the things that I do to prepare my plants for the cooler temperatures while we go from fall and then eventually transition into winter. So one of the first things about preparing your plants for the cooler weather in the fall is your watering schedule, your light, some of those basic things. So let's start with water. In the cooler weather months, your plants don't need as much water, so you definitely want to reel things back when it comes to your watering schedule. A lot of my plants, my snake plants, my pothos plants, those plants don't really require a ton of water to begin with, even my ZZ plants. But in the fall, in the cooler weather months, I'm just gonna say cooler weather because I know fall is relative. If you live in the South or other areas of the world, it may not be as cold for you. So when the temperatures start to dip, you definitely wanna reel things back when it comes to watering because watering can be a big no-no. You'll notice things like limp leaves, like in the case of my snake plant here. This is a sign of overwatering that you're seeing, so you definitely want to just kind of reel things back a bit. In the cooler weather months, I tend to water plants like my snake plants, my ZZ plants. I water them about once a month. Sometimes I even extend it about every 5 or so weeks. If it's a plant, for example, like a calathea that likes to remain moist, again, you don't want to water it as much as you would in the summertime or in the warmer weather months. Again, you want to kind of cut that back just a bit as well, but you still want to maintain some level of moisture. So just be careful and monitor it. It depends on your plant. Take a look at your plant. If you're noticing a ton of yellow leaves, a ton of limp leaves, a ton of like mushiness, then you know that you're overwatering those plants. Another thing you want to monitor, of course, is your lighting situation. Where I live, I generally don't get a ton of light at all. During the day, I probably get a few hours of light. So I've always used grow lights in my home. My plants have adjusted beautifully to my grow lights. So I don't really change things up a whole lot when it comes to my lighting because my plants consistently get the same amount of light year round. I do, however, try to either bring them away from the windows so they're not getting that direct draft from the windows. One of the things we installed last year was this plastic window guard. I don't remember the exact name, but we'll insert a photo here on the side. It's just like a plastic that you can put over your windows to prevent drafts from coming in. A majority of my plants, I have them on my plant shelf and they're right in front of a window. We put the plastic protector over the window to help eliminate some of the draft, and it has helped. It doesn't help completely, but I would say about 80% of that wind from the window, it definitely blocks that from coming in and getting to my plants, because as you guys know, you want to move those plants away from the window to move them away from any drafts. So consider getting that plastic window cover if you think that's something that'll help, if you have a ton of windows in your home, or just move them away from the window altogether. You may also want to consider installing, if you don't have one already, a curtain. Maybe a blackout curtain or a very thick curtain, because that'll also help as well with eliminating some of that extra draft coming in and affecting your plants. If you happen to be propagating plants like I am, you just want to make sure that you're changing out the water. And this doesn't just apply to the cooler weather months. This is at any time. If you're propagating your plants, monitor the water. Sometimes we forget about those plants because they're sitting in the water. They're developing those great strong roots. But again, you want to make sure you're changing out that water often. Don't let it sit around too much, kind of like my plants are right now. All you have to do is just take a peek. If you're noticing that a lot of the roots are exposed to dry air and no water, you want to change that water out. If you're noticing a film or any discoloration in your water, another good indication that it's time to change the water. So don't forget about those plants that you're propagating. If you haven't seen my recent video where I propagated my clippings back into the mother plant, definitely check that out. I'll leave it here in the cards and down below. But I typically would take my cuttings, prop it right back into the mother plant. In the case of my monsteras, I'm just gonna prop those into its own individual pot, but I'm probably gonna leave it in water a little while longer. You always hear people say that you don't want to repot in the cooler weather months. I still do it anyways because if my plants need it, they need it. So I'm probably more than likely gonna pot up all of my monstera propagations. Now let's talk about some of the things you can expect in the cooler weather months. Your plants, they're gonna go dormant, meaning you're not gonna see a lot of growth. It's gonna feel like you're just watering dirt. I remember I had an alocasia a year or so ago. It was an alocasia zebrina. Beautiful plant. It was so gorgeous, but then the leaves started dropping, and then after a while I was just watering a nub hoping that it would come back. I eventually got rid of the plant because I just couldn't be bothered anymore. But I mean, that is a reality. In some cases your plants will drop leaves like crazy. It's normal. It happens to most plants, not all plants, but it does happen to a lot of our plants when it gets colder outside. Another thing that you can expect to see, yellow crispy leaves. Don't be alarmed if you see a ton of yellow leaves. It's to be expected. Again, your plants are adjusting to the new climate. You're preparing to go dormant and just kind of chill until springtime rolls around. So you just want to keep up with your pruning schedule. I usually just go around and pluck the yellow leaves. Typically, if the yellow leaf, with my plants at least, are ready to come off, I can just easily break them off. It doesn't really require a lot of like pulling and tugging or clipping. Pop it off and it comes right off. Another thing you may see with some plants is browning of the leaves. Now, yellowing of the leaves can mean anything from overwatering to underwatering to too much light. Same thing with browning of the leaves. Although if you do see brown leaves, it could indicate that maybe there's something going on with the roots. So definitely inspect your plants, check out the roots, make sure everything is looking good down there. Make sure you don't have root rot, which is a result of overwatering. So just because it's colder outside and your plant is receiving less care by way of water or perhaps even light, you don't want to ignore your plants. You still want to make sure, even though you're watering a dormant plant, you still want to give it some attention and make sure everything is kosher. Another thing you can expect in the cooler weather months is slow growth. I just mentioned that your plants tend to go dormant, but that doesn't mean you're not going to see any growth whatsoever. It will be very slow. It's either going to be really slow to the point where it comes to a complete halt, dormancy, or you can see some growth, but it's just going to be really, really slow. So in the case of my ZZ plant, I do have some new growth wanting to poke out of there, but it has been taking its time. In the case of my calathea is doing well. I guess my calathea enjoys the cooler weather months. Sidebar, I used to have a calathea a couple years ago, like a year and a half ago, and that plant was doing really well, but then all of a sudden it just decided it no longer wanted to be a part of my home, so we parted ways. But I decided to get another calathea. Never thought I would get another one, but the pinstripe calathea ornata, it's just such a beautiful plant. I couldn't turn it away in the store, and it's been doing amazingly well. I'm constantly seeing new leaves, so that's an example of a plant. Even though we just entered the fall season, it's still sprouting new leaves and it's still doing great. So I'm gonna still continue to give it the same care, a little less water, but same level of care. Those are all the plant tips that I have for you as far as taking care of your plants in the fall and the things that have worked for my plants. If you have any questions, leave them for me below in the comments. Happy planting, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.